Guys, we're feeling relaxed. We've just had a deep breath. We're ready to go. I'm going to read you my tiny little introduction I've written for you. All right, everyone. Today we're diving into the story of Sabrina Maschke, a young entrepreneur who left her small town in Germany for a new life in Australia. Armed with nothing but a backpack and a dream, Sabrina refused to let her past struggles with depression and eating disorders to define her, and spent the last 4 years committed to doing whatever she could to adapt, learn, and evolve. Skip forward today, and she's not only been able to build a life she genuinely loves, but has also blossomed into the force behind her very own six-figure photography business. But now Sabrina is on a new mission, aiming to be the coach she wished she had. Sabrina wants to uplift others and share the strategies she used to transform her own life. So today we're diving into her own story, the obstacles she's overcome, and the insights she's eager to share. Sabrina, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
What did you think of that?
That was so good.
Sabrina, obviously, I don't know how much you know about the podcast, but the goal of this podcast is pretty much what you do as a job now, which I love. It's taking conversations, getting into detail with things, and trying to extract values from past stories and experiences so that people from the audience can learn. And I figure the best way to start with that is always every hero has their early journey and story, right? And I want to get to know what that looked like for you, because I know that your story is packed full of, you've had your struggles, which have gotten you where you are now. And I wanted to know about where it all started. You came from Germany and you moved here, right? Yeah. I want to know what life was like before you came here.
Honestly, my childhood was not the best, so lots of struggles, and I don't even know where to start. We're going straight into it, hey?
Straight bang into it. I mean, for you, the big leap, and like where we're going to go with this podcast, was when you came here. You changed your mindset, you built your business up, and you learned everything by changing your environment completely. But I want to know what the initial environment was like. It could be Germany, it could be Tuscany, it could be Tasmania for all I mind, but to the audience, it's maybe the things you're experiencing in Germany might be relatable to them. So talk to me about your childhood, what your school life was like, what your lifestyle was like, and we'll get into how it's changed.
Well, for me, growing up, I think I always had a lot of people around me that didn't treat me very well, like grown up people where I was, or still thinking today when I look back, I'm like, it's not, like, how can you treat a child like that? And it's, so through that, I very early on developed depression and eating disorders, and kind of always saw life as a circumstance. So I never had the knowledge really that you can change your life the way you wanted to, and that you can have dreams and you can work towards it, and you can, be whatever you want to be really if you put in the work. You
mentioned in one of your videos that life to you back when you were younger was it just is what it is. I'm not very happy. Things kind of suck, but like I guess this is just it, right?
Yeah. So I don't know. I never really had much to look forward to or much that I enjoyed doing. Also, like for me, coming from a family not having much money and like kind of, have a lot of siblings and like a lot of stuff that was going on between my parents and their new partners, and I forgot where I was going.
No, you're fine. Sometimes accessing, like, I know if you would ask me the shit in my life that sucks, it's hard for me to remember because I block it all out. But I guess if I could reframe the question, could you try and paint the picture? Like you've mentioned, there's stuff going on with the family. You didn't come from a great economic background with the family. You were an average kid. What were you interested in? What were you like as a kid?
Yeah, so I remember where I was going with that. So I always kind of had to work really hard for everything I got, especially money. So I started working from like a very young age. So I think my first kind of unofficial job was when I was 9. And I was working behind a bar. It was like not like a public event, so that's why I kind of worked in a way. And then when I was 12, I started delivering newspapers, and obviously, like, I don't think anyone enjoys it really.
But you did it anyway.
Yeah, for the money, because otherwise it was the only way for me to get something. And then I started working in the kitchen as like, washing dishes. So yeah, I don't know. It was just like, I always felt like I couldn't really enjoy life. And then with the way people were kind of treating me as well, I didn't really want to speak. I didn't want to say anything because I was always made wrong for the way I was or what I said, and people would like twist my words around.
So it just wasn't, regardless of the severity of the unniceness, it just wasn't your type of environment, regardless.
Yeah.
What I want to get into is I want to get into the question of like, what was the rock bottom? What was the thing that transitioned you into thinking, you know what, I need to change things up? Before then, did you ever find, even as a young kid that, right, didn't come up with much money, had to work for everything she had, and really wasn't overly that happy with her current spot, did you always find there was perhaps something in you, or did you feel that you deserve is a dangerous word, but deserved more or wanted more for yourself? Or did you just, nah, this is my life, this is what it is, and then there was some epitome moment? Like, when you were going through these situations, did you feel anything within? Did you feel like something wasn't right?
Well, I just didn't know that I could change anything. It was just like I accepted it so deeply that I just thought that's how it is because I didn't know it any other way, right? So I never really knew that, yeah, I could change it, really.
So then specifically that leads me to the perfect question of, well, what was the moment that caused you to want to move? You were how old?
21.
Okay, so what was the moment? What did that look like for you? It's time to go.
Well, it was a few different situations, but it was more an outcome of everything else didn't work out. So I wanted to go to uni, but that wasn't really an option. And then I met someone who's just been to Australia and he taught me about his travel and what he did. And I was like, yep, that's what I want to do.
Sounds much better.
So, yeah, I didn't have much expectation. I just knew I had this quote, I read this quote somewhere and it was just like stuck in my mind. And it went something like, I don't know if it's going to be better if something changes, but I know I have to change something in order for it to get better.
Nothing changes if nothing changes. You
Exactly.
know what I mean?
And yeah, then it was just like the decision was made and I started working after school for a few months to be able to pay for flight tickets to come here, and then just packed my bags and left, really.
So it was at this point you're ready for a change. You've heard that the grass might just be greener on the other side. You've saved the money and you've made the leap now. At this stage, I don't know if you've come up with the idea to start a business. I know in your media and the stuff you put out, it's, I moved, I changed my life, I changed my mindset, and then obviously we met. But we'll get into that stage, and that was the period probably right at the beginning of the transformation. Can you talk to me just about what it looks like for someone to, again, like we said, this could be Tuscany, Tasmania, or somewhere else, for someone who's moving and changing their environment as dramatically as moving to another country, right? It could be moving to another suburb, right? It doesn't matter. Just to make it relatable, what was it like? What were the feelings? How did you get yourself through? I mean, you're learning another language too. How did you might not have come up with your business idea yet. So you might not have been motivated. You might have just been traveling for the first part. What kept you from being like, oh shit, this is hard, I'm going back to Germany? Like, how do you stay moved?
Stay moved.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, I was traveling at first. So it was just like finally getting out of everything that was familiar, because as I was growing up, I never had the opportunity to travel much or very far, so I haven't really seen much. I've never really been in a country where they speak English, so I was just with my broken English, just like school English, and I wasn't very good in English at all. So it was a big struggle at first, for sure, with the language. And yeah, I kind of just enjoyed. Like, I finally saw that there was more out there. I saw how other people live their lives, because all these years I've just been, living in the same environment. And like, I had like a very closed off mindset and just like the tunnel vision of like, that's life. And I just didn't know that there was more to it.
So even to the audience there, sometimes that big move from one environment to another doesn't have to be money related. It can be self-discovery related. Like you said, that first year of you traveling, you probably learned more about yourself straight away than you did that whole time in where you came from.
100%.
It's interesting as well. there's this idea that sometimes the discomfort you know is still greater than the discomfort you don't know. Like the thing about risks and changing environment. I know I really, really, really want to get in shape, but I don't know what that lifestyle feels like. And to go to the gym and change my diet, it's all of these new things and I'm scared of the unknown. As much as I hate suffering, being unhealthy and being out of shape, at least I know how to do it, right? For you, was there a moment where you thought, oh, maybe I do want to go back home? Or was it you just never look back?
There was one situation in particular where I thought, what the fuck am I doing here? Because it was like, well, the story was, it was in the first couple of weeks when I got to Australia, and I was traveling with people I've just met, and we flew to Tasmania, and we were traveling around. Everything was like, okay. I didn't get along like super well with them. I was quite sick. And then the last day, we hired a car, but we had to drop it off back to the airport. So we needed one more night to stay in a hostel. And what we didn't know was that weekend there was like huge festival going on.
Oh.
So everything was booked out. The other guys I was traveling with, they found something else and kind of just left me. So I had to drop off the car back to the airport. And I was like,
figuring it out.
What am I going to do tonight? I don't have a place to stay. I don't have the airport in Tasmania, it's like the last flight goes at 11. The first one goes at like 8 a.m. So it's like, I was 100% sure they're going to close the night. So I dropped the car back off and I was just like destroyed and like crying. I was like, what the fuck am I doing here? I could be at home right now in my beautiful bed, sleeping well, but instead I chose to come here and now I probably have to sleep on the street tonight. Luckily, happily turn of events, I met some guys at the airport and they were in the exact same situation as I was. Turns out they were German as well.
Oh, God, miracle, jeez.
And yeah, we just kind of hung out with them the night. The security guard, he opened up the room like in the back of the airport for us to stay. So we were able to sleep there tonight. It was like where the bags arrive from, so bag collection.
You slept in the baggage collection
area. We slept there. So in the morning, we were just like laying around on the floor. And in the morning, I woke up and like people like kind of stepping over me and like having their trolleys like next to my face. But yeah, I was just like, it was just like luck in an unlucky situation, I guess. And I got along with them very well and just started traveling with them afterwards.
Let's call that obviously I'm sure there's a whole lot more detail on that side, like that whole section of the story, but let's bookend that as the adventure section of your move. Now we're going to get into, okay, Sabrina's changed her environment. She knew that where she was coming from wasn't a place that was making her happy or going to fulfill her potential, but perhaps she didn't know what a potential yet. So she changed her environment nonetheless, moved over to Australia to travel, slept in baggage areas, had fun, did whatever. But then she found photography and began the business side. Now, this is sort of where we kind of meet, but I want to start with discuss what got her into photography in the first place, and when did you realize it could generate an income for you?
Yeah, so I eventually, so that's a few years later, started to get a bit like interested in self-development. So I came across a couple of books, and that's when like the first time that I realized I can do so much more than I ever thought I could. And there was like this one exercise where you just had to write down all your dreams, like random, just like anything that comes to your mind. Anything. And that was the first time ever I really thought about, what do I want to do? Like, what do I like doing? What's like something that I could look forward to? Obviously, besides that, making that travel to Australia, but and making that your job. Because before I've always done jobs I never really liked doing or never really enjoyed it. So yeah, with that, I started doing some photography, and that was actually, I was working in a restaurant at that time. I was a bartender, and the manager came up to me one day and he was like, we need some content for social. And he was like, I feel like you would be good at it. And I was like, yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
And I had what I thought back then a really good camera, like a $200 camera. I was like, no idea that like a proper camera costs like $5,000 at least. So I was like, I have a really good camera. I can bring it. I can shoot some content. And looking back at it now, I still think the photos turned out really good. Like considering that I've never done any photography before. I was shooting in automatic mode and just like trying to make it look good, and kind of worked. And someone else saw it and then asked me to do some work for them, and it just kind of kept rolling like that. So it was never something I really planned, never something I learned really. Everything's self-taught through YouTube videos and just like try and error.
It's crazy, obviously my story is very similar, not in the way that I started my business, but in the way that I picked up a camera. Like sometimes you just think, you know what, that could be cool, I'm going to try it. Like the story is always so common, right? So many people, there have probably been a million podcasts you guys have listened to where the expert has come in and said, you know what, I just gave it a crack, right? It's not new information from you, but if you were to summarize that step, for someone who's like, used to working in restaurants or used to working a certain job that they don't really like, is there an actionable step that they could take other than just saying, hey, just go and try it, to make them think, what if someone offered them a photography job and they're like, well, actually, I don't know if I'd like that. Are you saying try it anyway? Are you saying there's no benefit to saying no, especially when you don't really know your direction? Perhaps try a bunch of different things.
Yeah, I guess just start dreaming. Just think about like, what do you like doing? What do you enjoy doing, without thinking, oh, I want to make an income from it, right? And
100%.
it could just be a hobby, which is beautiful too. Like, because for me, or for us, like working as a photographer or videographer, it's taking away from your hobby. Like it's work now. So it might just be you finding a great hobby you enjoy doing. And
that is such a good point. And we've sort of talked about it in the past on the podcast, the idea that, yes, a lot of the tips and tricks you can learn and use for mastery in any given vertical don't always have to result in money. Like, I've come to learn this, but my whole life since I was a kid, I started making videos when I was like 8, right? I've literally got like disc sets of movies that I like, Lego Star Wars movies, Nerf gun movies, all of these things. I've been doing it. My dream was always to live off of a camera or to do camera stuff full time. No doubt as time's gone on and I've worked and worked and worked, this has evolved into how can I generate an income from it and still enjoy it? But I will say at the start, I remember when I first, made a decent amount of money from videography, photography, I thought to myself, oh my God, I have not used my camera for anything I want to do in like 6-7 months at least. Sure, I've finally fulfilled this dream of I'm living full time off of a camera, I'm making more money than I've ever made ever, but I don't feel all that happy. So yes, bit by bit, I've slowly turned this business into how can I make the same amount of money, if not more, but also still love what I'm doing, right? But Sabrina's made an amazing point there in the sense of, especially at the start, don't be afraid to dream. Look at the things you like doing and just try them. Yes, sure, if you'd like to be a basketballer full-time or be an artist full-time, there will be different sets of steps to generate an income from it. But at the start, just focus on getting the actual skill right. And the skill is the hobby of chess or the hobby of refurbishing furniture. You get what I'm saying? It can always lead to the income, but like what you said, I just dreamt. I just wanted to try the photo thing, and it's worked out for you. My next question is we're going to get into this is going to be a segue, how you actually generated the income. But I want to sort of just touch on the period of time when we first met. Mm-hmm. When I met you, I was probably a year and a bit into living, like I'd quit my full-time job. I remember there was a stage that I was studying part-time at uni. I was posting every week to YouTube and I was managing a Zembrero. I was rolling burritos.
No way, I didn't even know that.
So I went from Zembrero money, COVID had just happened, and they had given us JobKeeper. If you're not from Australia, JobKeeper was almost a government benefit that helped paid people who lost their hours of work when COVID shut down businesses, right? And you were given a certain amount of money per week, regardless of how many hours you work. Now, some people took that money and went on holidays with it because the government payment was actually more than what they were probably earning from their real job. Every single cent that I got from that JobKeeper, I bought videography courses, camera gear, all of the lighting, everything I could to turn this video hobby of mine that was at this time only on YouTube into something that would generate me an income? How can I learn? How can I pay people to teach me? How can I be around people? Anyways, a good friend of mine was already probably 2 years into that journey, had already built his business, had already started generating an income from it. And he offered me a job to work with him. Anyways, at the time, it didn't pay much compared to now, but I wanted to talk to you about the idea, and this is when we met because you were working for the same person. Mm-hmm. We worked together on these shoots, regardless of the money at the time. I've got the note here, the value of being paid to learn. I look back on those times when we met and we would every Tuesday, Wednesday, we'd go and shoot a flower pot one day, and then we'd go and shoot photos of a photo frame the next, and then some Viking cups. We were shooting random shit. So true. We were working for a drop shipping company that was making ads for all of these random products. 1 minute we'd be shooting one thing, working with actors, it was a fun time. I don't know if it was the same for you, but I look back on those times and I think, you know what, of all the courses I've bought, I learned so much from that period of time, just rocking up to shoots, getting reps in, doing shoots, shooting this, trying this lighting, trying this thing. Mm-hmm. Did you, perhaps you can relate, I'm going to hand the ball over to you because I'm ranting now. That period of time where we were being paid X, Y, and Z per hour, it's probably a quarter of as much as what we're earning now. How valuable were those times where you could generate a little baby income, but you're actually learning far more than what you're being paid? Like, you're learning so much.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that and the value of it. Why did you bother when you could say, actually, I should be paid double this? It's like, no, I'm learning.
Well, for me, first of all, it's like the money mindset behind it. And that was like the biggest thing for me, because I didn't think I would deserve more because
neither did I back then. I was like, oh my God, I'm getting paid this amount per hour.
That was like the most I've gotten paid ever, because like before I always worked below minimum wage.
Yeah, me too.
Now actually getting over minimum wage, I was like, that's amazing.
And I'm getting it from my look, forgive me, let me reframe. Looking back on those times, I was getting paid more than I was getting paid to roll burritos at Sombreros, to take photos. To me, I was rich. That was the most money I'd ever made ever. I'm just looking back at it now and I'm like, don't even worry about the X, Y, and Z per hour we were paid. It was the months worth of training that we got and chances to fail. Yeah. Like, I'm so glad for that time.
But also you doing, like for me, it was doing something that I enjoyed doing. So I was no longer in a place of, life is hard and I don't like anything what I have to do. It's like I do something that I enjoy doing. It doesn't feel like work, and I'm getting paid more than I've ever gotten paid before. So there was that. And obviously as well, the learning factors.
We got so much better over time.
Yeah. Also just like doing it because that's just the best way to learn. And then having people there who know what they're doing as well, and just kind of say, hey, try this setting, or have you tried that? And it just really sticks that way.
Sabrina, that leads me to my next question of, hey, like you said, you were happy doing what you're doing, you're learning, you're being paid from it. Why didn't you stay in that position? Like, we're going to get into the process of how you've built to where you are now. We've both come a very long way since those days, but you're here now. What changed? Why don't you just stay doing the same thing?
Well, it's a growth factor. So very quickly, or after some time, it gets very repetitive. So yeah, I just kind of, want to grow further and want to do things that challenge me more. So after a while, you're like so comfortable in that position, but you might also get a bit bored while doing it because it's like the same thing over and over again.
How about we hypothetically talk to the people who are still sitting in Germany right now, though? And by that, I mean the people who haven't taken the jump. So now they're hearing this person who's taken the jump, invested in their mindset, invested in their skills and knowledge, and is now generating an income. To these people that'd be thinking, you've already done it. Why are you bothering to grow? So now they're thinking, okay, well, now Sabrina's not like us. She clearly is a driven person. I'm not driven. Like, I'm saying? You're thinking, well, of course I was going to grow. I was comfortable. Some people were like, that's the point. We're comfortable. I'm happy. And now they're going to hear this and be like, oh, she's clearly a driven person. She's clearly got that fire inside of her, which I don't have. Is there a way that you trained or learned that skill? Because for me, I was very happy in that time, but I always knew I wanted more. Mm-hmm. I don't think I was born with that, though. You just slowly but surely learn to level up. That's how humans go. That's how I see it. But for you?
That is a good question. I never really thought about it. I think it always came natural to me. That being said, though, I feel like you just have to decide it for yourself. If you like, what are your goals? What are your values? Where do you want to go with your life, right? Where do you want to be in 5 years, 10 years from now? So depending on your answers, it's like, okay, what do you need to do now in order to get there? And if, money is not a priority for you and you just love having a job that is maybe not taking up most of your time, then that's beautiful and that's fine. But if if wealth is something that is important to you, or you have just bigger goals and bigger dreams, then you got to take action now in order to get there.
Correct. And maybe that actionable step that Sabrina's talking about, and I had this conversation with my mum this morning, she wants to start a new chapter and almost a business venture in her life, but she kind of doesn't know where to start. Regardless of what that growth looks like to you as a person, maybe the key step is just, like you said, you ask the question, where do you want to be in 5 years? That's a very important question. And it's very easy to think of that question, but who's actually taking the time to sit down? It might be with a journal, or it might be over a coffee with a friend, or it might be with your parents or trusted loved ones. Are you actually thinking of those answers? Are you stopping to think, hey, you know what? That is a really good question. What is my answer? Maybe I should spend a couple of hours this morning. I know it seems like you're dawdling and you probably have bills to pay and work to do, but there's always time for something that you prioritize. Mm-hmm. That's a very important question. So many people think about it, but not many people aren't like, where do I want to be in 5 years? Okay, well, I don't know. All right, well, then let's break down the question a little bit. Where would I like to be next week? Or where would I like to be next month? And then if people say that that's perhaps too broad and I don't know how to answer, where would I like to be with my health? Mm-hmm. Where would I like to be with my income? Where would I like to be in my social? You can break it down and compartmentalize. And eventually, I'm telling you, if you put enough time in and you reflect with yourself enough, you'll probably be a lot closer to where you think you kind of want to find yourself than not. Does that make sense?
100%. Well,
have the conversation.
Most people, they have a dream or a goal or an idea of what they want to do, but they just see this mountain they have to climb in order to get there, right? So it almost seems impossible to achieve when just like such a big goal. But if you break it down and just think about, what is the first step I need to do? What is the next step I need to do? So always focusing on your next move and like, what can you do today in order to get there? Don't worry about next year, next month, or next week. What do you have to do, or what can you do today to just get you a little bit closer towards your goal? Because like little tiny steps that add up, right? Really, and then one day you look back and you say, I walked all this way and look where it's got me. You're like, on the top of the mountain. And Correct. It's like, it didn't feel like you climbed this whole way because you're always just focused on the step in front of you.
Correct. And I 100% agree with that. And I've heard it before and I live by that. But one thing that I want to add a little bit of a salt and pepper to that point, a little bit of flavor. Don't overestimate how small those steps can be. People are like, yes, you can break it down. Yes, we take baby steps each day to get up the hill. And yes, when you look at it from like you zoom out, you're like, oh my God, I have come so far. Mm-hmm. These steps can be tiny, so tiny, and they always still count as progress. And you gave me the idea to say, there's a difference between a dream and a plan, right? And when you write out a plan and you can actually break it down, it seems all the more achievable. And for me, I'm the sort of person who loves checking things off. I'll write. I remember the stage when before I realized, okay, Marcus, you actually have real priorities and things that you actually need to do. Mm-hmm. I would trick myself into thinking I was productive. So like, I had a shower this morning. I drank some water. Like, I'd set a task, like make sure to breathe next. X. Got it done.
I'm the same. I just love ticking off thinking of my to-do list.
But as you guys grow and you learn, you eventually learn to, okay, well, what's the most important thing I need to do today? And if you only have a certain amount of time free, how can I use this hour the most best that I can? Mm-hmm. Anyways, I don't want to go too deep into that. I
like that. Isn't it like called Parkinson law?
Parkins. Is that the 80-20? Is that, no? That's
it's similar, very similar. Well, Parkinson law is basically you focusing on the main things. So asking yourself, and I'm just like, am I just making up things to feel productive, or am I actually doing things that are productive? And then also the 80-20 rule, which is like 20% of the input result in 80% of the outcome.
Which is like where both of you and I are now, which is like a lot of the times it's so easy to get caught up by the shiny object and do the other 80% of the work to achieve only 20% of the result. And it's just grow. Anyways, speaking of business, I want to get into that because this is something we can both relate on. I know both of us have sort of ascended away from just being photographers or just running photography businesses. Not that there's anything against that. I still love photography and I still do it regularly. But I want to zoom back to the point where you were in that hustle to build your photography income. It says here, asked about the main misconception between a good photographer and a photographer who makes money. So perhaps a business owner and a business owner who makes money.
Yeah. Well, it comes down to you setting the value, like you setting your worth and knowing your worth. Because like you could be the best photographer out there if you don't charge what you're worth, or maybe you do it for free, you will never have an income from it.
Can I get your opinion on something?
Yeah.
I used to think that. And I remember as I'd slowly but surely raise the prices of my products. And if someone asked me for an hourly rate, I'd tell them, I don't do it by the hour, I do it for this product. And I'd slowly raise until people started saying no. And then I realized, okay, I'm probably at the right place now.
Okay.
Realizing what you're worth is one thing. Very, 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 very important thing at the start, especially for people starting out who are just, at the start, you might only want testimonials. You might only want proof that your work is half decent, right? I've come to a point now where it's less about what I think I'm worth and more about being in touch with what the market and the customer is willing to spend. And that doesn't mean going around asking people what their budget is, because obviously if there's anyone listening, that's always a losing conversation, because it's always, you should just know what your prices are, which is what Sabrina's saying. Is there something to be said about, it's very easy as a photographer and a creative to really be focused on the art. Like, I'm a really good photographer, I'm a really great artist, and my work is second to none. But then you walk into a conversation with any business, even the top ones that are willing to pay the most money, and they're like, well, a photographer's only worth this. Like that they're commoditizing you. They're comparing you to every other photographer, right? That's where I came into the idea of learning to build a stronger offer rather than just knowing what my value was. I'd be like, well, this is what the people are willing to spend. This is what they think it's worth. How can I make my offer stand out and be more valuable and really hit the points of their problem specifically, so that when I say, hey, I'm double what X, Y, and Z charges, this is why it's worth it. I'm kind of answering my own question, I guess. Sabrina, can you talk to us about the value of really understanding your customer? And at the end of the day, we're here to solve problems as business people. Yeah. We help people with their problems. Did you find you grew when you really understood, like who was your customer back in the day, your main avatar?
Well, back in the day, I did a lot of product photography. So I was working with brands and a lot of startups as well. Whereas now I'm more in the wedding industry. So
how do you communicate differently to a product customer and a wedding customer? Two very different customers with two very different rates of payment.
Well, for the weddings, I feel like there's a lot of emotional connection. So you really want to understand what is important to them. Who are the important people on the day? I don't know, what any details that are unique to them, and you just, also want to listen to their concerns, or maybe they worry about something about their wedding day. So, you really just want to understand the client as a person, whereas when you work with the business, you obviously want to understand the business side of it, and like the branding, their unique voice, their unique selling point, what is different, like what differentiates their brand from everyone else, and what do they want to bring across? What feeling, or what are they wanting to feel the client? It's completely different.
Do you guys see there though, when Sabrina is comparing between dealing photos for a business and dealing photos for a consumer, both are paying customers, but she used the words unique there. And this goes back to my point about the offer of, I don't want to get straight into saying everybody needs to niche down and really focus on one thing. But obviously Sabrina's done the rep. She's been doing this for a long time. When you do something enough, you become an expert at it. And by that, I don't just mean taking expert photos. I mean, understanding the customer to a point where, hey, wedding person, I've shot 30 weddings now, or I've shot 60 weddings. I kind of know how this works. And therefore you understand, all right, well, who are the most important people? What are the questions? Where are the locations we're shooting? I guess what I mean to say is, when you do one thing enough, and this could be a good actionable piece to designers, videographers, photographers, animators, producers, when you're starting out, or maybe when you're further into the career path you've chosen and you perhaps want to make a little bit more money, therefore provide more value to the person you're helping, picking the one thing and just being really, really good at the service delivery and not just the creative will really, really help you. Like what you just said there, you can look, if I asked you to take a good photo of this cup, I know you could do it. I know I could do it. We're good photographers. But if I said this cup is for a energy drink company versus this cup is for a orange juice company, they're still very similar and the customer's still similar. The point of the matter is
tea and energy.
The conversation and the way it's B2C. Fuck, I'm going on a rant.
No, but yeah, it has a different feeling behind it. You would shoot it in a different way, right?
And the way you deal with them is different too.
Yeah. And also, like, I love what you said, because it becomes less about the photo itself, but more about what you bring across with that photo, and what do you want the people to feel looking at the photos, what do you want to bring across. And then also, like, with weddings, for example, it's like you're no longer just capturing whatever is happening, you're capturing the details, right? So it's not like you just take a white shot, oh look, that's the ceremony. You're like, the ring exchange is happening. You have like a close-up of the ring, or like the grandma is sitting there and she has like tears in her eyes. You capture that because it evokes emotions, right? And that's the photos they're going to look back on and they feel something afterwards. And they're not going to look back at the photo of just like a white shot of the ceremony, for example, you know?
So I've talked about niching and really understanding specific parts of specific roles. Let's zoom back out macro just for everybody. What are the main things you've learned over your time just running a business?
There are a few different, like lots of different things for sure. On the business side of things, it's definitely the back end. So having systems in place, having workflows, having questionnaires, or communicating properly with the client, contracts as well, just to outline what they can expect from you and what you're delivering and when the payment is due and everything else. And the biggest thing for me, with like the money mindset and everything, coming from a place where I always worked below minimum wage, and like people around me when I was younger, they would always talk bad about money in a way. Like everyone was always fighting about it. Like there was never enough. It was always such a big problem. So I started avoiding it. Like I didn't want to talk about it. And now having my own business, having to price myself and like tell people, look, that's what I'm charging, and like sending invoices, like that was the hardest thing for me ever. And I was struggling.
Did you feel like an imposter or a thief or something? Like it's like, like I can understand why it'd be scary. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I just wanted to avoid it. I just hated talking about it, and also charging more if there was any more work involved. So I constantly undercharged myself.
Me too.
I didn't ask for more if I had more work or had to do anything additional. And what I learned eventually was like, yeah, just changing my mindset around money.
I can't live like this anymore. That's what you learned. Like, and it's interesting. You talk about like, you know, the back end. The back end is what serves the front end in the sense of like you setting expectations with customers at the start, doing everything you can so everyone knows like when you book me and you pay this money, you get this. It happens this way. It goes this way, and it's because I have this method of fulfilling your work, right? It's so interesting back in the younger days when we're like, oh my God, I'm getting paid. I agree to do this. And then because you're not set expectations, this happens. It's 50 more hours. It's this, that. And you're like, but I'm still getting paid more than Zambi, so I'll keep doing it. But then you're literally working 24 hours a day. You're miserable. And you know what? Sorry to the customers. Yeah. Sorry to the customers out there that might really want the photographers that are cheaper and might really want to save some money. You won't get the best work. When you pay peanuts, you get fucking monkeys. I don't care if that sounds silly. Genuinely, I'm glad I'm at a point now where I can kind of avoid the penny pushing with certain old customers, and I don't really do that sort of work as much. But when I look back at it, I just think, I can't help you in the best way possible. This isn't even about me putting money in my pocket. It's if I have this money, I'm not going to literally like be working all hours and making you worse work. I can do better work because I can do this with that money. I can use your money for this. I can spend it this way to make your work better. It's almost like you ascend just trying to put money in your pocket and you're like, how can I help you the best way? Oh, I need this money for that reason.
Yeah. And eventually I just, saw how important communication is. So communicating properly about your prices. So from now on, I'm like, they reach out to me. I'm like, here are my prices. Here's how it works. You pay a deposit to secure your date. This is when the full amount is due. This is what you're getting. If you want extra things, these are the prices.
And they're happier for it more often than not, I think. They'd be happy about it.
100%, because they know what they're getting and they're not feel like you might, like, it's a bit sketchy, like she's so weird about it. Why is she not telling me how much she's charging? You're just like so open with it and everyone just feels better about it.
And not just that, Sabrina, if perhaps they decide, you know what, damn, she is a bit expensive. Maybe I don't want to. Great, everyone's time is saved. No worries, walk away. We're all happy versus going back and forward, fucking around. Oh, I don't miss that side of the business at all. Obviously, probably, you do it for enough years and people see you as valuable. The work starts coming to you and you can, I guess, pick the best stuff. And maybe that leads me to my next question, which is, I'm sure you've found value now in a point where, sure, you've generated a skill where you're able to generate a full-time income, but now you're at a point, yes, we'll talk about the transition of business later, but now you're at a point where perhaps the money's not the most important thing. Perhaps it's, I really want to take photos for the clients that I believe really value it, or 100%. The clients I really want to push their message. I really want to be involved with this project. Abundance, right?
Yeah.
When did you realize perhaps like you felt, I've generated some safety here. Now I might just cherry pick the ones that I want to help most. Was there a time for you? What did that look like?
I definitely realized that finding your ideal client and getting very clear on what you enjoy doing, who you are as a person as well, the way you show up, because you're not for everyone. And for like weddings, for example, I feel like it's so personal because you are there on the day and it's really about your personality as well. So some people, they might want someone who is, a bit more bubbly and out there and yelling around in the way, and it's perfect. And then there are other people who might prefer someone who...
be a fly on the wall, stay out of the way, take the photos.
Or just someone who brings a bit of like calmness into the day, into like the stressful day. And when I was first starting out, and I think that's where my growing up, I was always kind of made wrong for being the quiet one. And so unconsciously, I always thought, I have to hide that part of me. I have to pretend to be someone that I'm not. And I noticed from feedback from my clients that they were kind of thinking like my branding was a bit off, like my messaging. They kind of thought I was someone that I'm not.
So they liked your photos, but you're saying perhaps the service, hey, you mentioned you were super bright and bubbly, but I can tell that you would rather be silent? Is that what you're saying?
Well, it's not that I mentioned that in particular, but there was definitely something in my messaging that gave them the thought of me just being, like super fun. Like I am fun, but like
I am fun.
like super out there and loud. And I had like one client of me like kind of being a bit rude and kind of saying, like her grandma was taking photos and she was like, why are you not telling her off? And I'm like, well, because like, that's not me. I love that she's taking photos for herself because like, I understand that it's valuable for her. And I'm working like with everyone around me, right?
Yeah, I'm like, not the only photographer here today, right?
Yeah, it's like, I'm not the most important person. And maybe she was looking for someone who was very loud and like yelling around and putting people into place. Yeah. And then later on, I got the feedback from clients, or now I get the feedback from clients telling me, we love that you're so calm. Like the day is such a stressful day and you brought so much calmness into the day. And we loved working with you. Everyone said how nice I was and how I, work with people instead of kind of telling them what to do. And so learning that and just bringing that message out there through my content, my website, my copy and everything else, that was definitely a huge learning curve.
Before we move on to the next part, Sabrina, you raise a good point there. There is a common trend now of you will attract the best when you just lean into being yourself, right? And if that doesn't work for some people, like you said, the world will keep spinning, but at least you are 100% authentic to the people who do vibe with that and do want to invest in that. What do you say to the people who perhaps haven't found themselves, or like what you said just then, you thought that you had to be this bubbly, bright, loud, directive person because you weren't really rewarded for it as a kid, but now you've leaned back into this side that you found and suddenly people like it and people are aligned to it. How do you even know that that was what you were? What do you say to the people that people say that I need to be myself and lean into what I feel is authentic to me, but I don't even know what that is. Is it reflection? How do you find what those idiosyncrasies of yourself are?
That's a really good question. I think there's a part of you that knows for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I was thinking, what would I answer to that? Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, and it's listening to the feedback you're getting from people around you. And it might seem as negative feedback, but it doesn't have to be negative. Like, you can take that feedback, and it's always a matter of wording as well. Like, people could tell me, oh, you're so quiet, or other people tell me you're a good listener. It's like it's the same thing, but putting it in a positive aspect or a negative aspect. So yeah.
Would you say the key then is to ask people for feedback? That could, like, let's say someone's like, all right, my mission for the next week is to discover who I am, right? Let's just say we set it as a task, which you shouldn't. Today's task is I'm going to find out about myself. You're saying, for example, for the people who are on that journey of discovering themselves, feedback's a good one. Perhaps ask, hey, top 5 trusted people in my life. Genuinely, this is going to sound weird. And I actually remember doing this. I did this with my friends probably in 2016 or 17. It's gone through a little stage where I liked some things about myself, but then other people would come to me and say, you're this, and it hurt my feelings. So I would come to the people around me that I trusted, my mom, my siblings, my close friends, hey guys, and I literally sent them a questionnaire. And I remember Austin did this as well, by the way. I sent these people a question. I said, hey, what are my top 5 strengths? What are my top 5 weaknesses? And when you think of me, what sort of person do I present myself as? What do you receive? And I read through all of these different answers, and some of them, some of them were really different. Some people saw me this way. Some people saw me that way. I agreed with some things. I didn't agree with other things, but there was certainly a trend of common answers. And I thought, Sabrina's right. There is a way to take on feedback, and like, let's say there was something that you didn't like and it hurt your feelings. It probably hurt your feelings because it was probably true. And I knew instantly, based on that feedback is good, feedback is good, feedback is good, that I had to make some adjustments. Yeah. Feedback is good. That's very cool. I was going to ask you the question about, your investment into your skills in terms of your mindset, masterminds, classes, but that probably will be the perfect segue to get into what you do now. Should we just establish what your business is now? I'm not saying that you drop photography on its head and it's over. I'm sure that's still part of your income, but in terms of purpose, in terms of direction, what's Sabrina now?
Yeah, I love that you said purpose, because I feel like I love photography and I'm still gonna keep doing that, but I never felt like it was the end goal. Like, it was the path or the road in getting me to where I am now, right? And where I want to go into the future. So I learned for myself that, well, just like, coming from where I came from and like everything I've learned and everything I've changed, and my life is just like so different to what it used to be. And there's so much I learned, especially when it comes to mindset. So I just want to give that to other people as well. I want to help them to get to where they want to go. So I want to give that back to people, and I think maybe that might be my purpose. Like,
we were talking about this slightly off camera before we started recording. I said, you know what? It really is the human way. Like, you look at evolution, you look at the way humans have passed knowledge over the years, over the centuries, over the generations. If there's someone who has learned something, and that having learned something is of value, that has made that person's life richer, better, more easy, or X, Y, and Z benefit. If that can be passed on, then that is a life well lived, I believe.
Yeah.
So you've sort of found, okay, well, I've come with this set of skills, I've overcome these set of challenges. I think these challenges might be relatable to other people. Maybe my solutions might be helpful. Is that kind of where you're going?
Yeah.
So what would you say, you've called it a coaching, I would call it a coaching model. What is it? But let's just pretend, actually, I'm not saying you to give a sales pitch to the audience right now so they go and buy things, but like, can you inform me about what it is that you do?
Well, it's kind of about just opening opening people's eyes in a way. Like,
you mentioned earlier that you were targeting, or like the type of person that you want to help is the type of person that relates to the problems you've been through. You're not looking to help someone take a $1 million business to a $1 billion business. You're helping someone to take the first steps of, do you believe that you can do more than your current job? Do you believe that you might want to make the change from moving to Germany? Like, how can I get you to the next step? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
What does it look like inside of the program? You talk to people. Have you had any really good breakthroughs? What's the feedback been like? What are the people like?
Yeah, well, I'm just starting out. So I just opened up my very first program. And while I still want to go on the business sides of everything, I feel like everything starts with you, right? So everything you do starts with yourself, your mindset, the things you do, your daily, habits and all that. So whatever you do in order to show up better for everyone else, and that's for your family, your partner, your kids, or even your clients, right? It all starts with you. So if you are feeling good and you are well taken care of, you can show up and serve everyone else.
It contributes to everything.
Yeah. So that's why I want to start there. So creating healthy habits for yourself. And it's not just about like, okay, we're going to set healthy habits and then we're just going to do it. We're going to go a little bit deeper than that. So go into that mindset behind everything, and maybe your limiting beliefs, or setting up yourself for success. So what can you do in order to make that work? So yeah, it's definitely going to go a lot.
I was going to ask you, what have you learned? But I'm going to rewind the question even further in terms of just macro for this whole podcast. Let's just pretend I'm inside of the course right now and I'm one of your customers or people that have, I want to invest in myself. I want to get better. In your life, business, relationships, friends, customers, clients, everything. Let's say we're talking about the whole melting pot of everything. What are the 3 things you've learned that have helped you excel? Or three habits or 3 practices or things that have really been most pivotal for you? I know that you have a very regimented, or maybe not so regimented, but regular and consistent exercise routine. You do that a lot. It's good for your head. Anything else come to mind?
Yeah, definitely healthy habits. So that's where, activities come in, or just like a healthy lifestyle. So you're moving your body, you're taking care of yourself, eating healthy, making sure you're doing all the things to stay healthy and to keep a clear head. And then I forgot what
fundamental things. You talking about the fundamentals.
Yeah. So also what really changed for me is like I noticed I was talking very bad to myself in my head. Yeah. So I was always putting myself down. I would always like just have very negative self-talk. So as soon as I noticed that, I was able to shift that and change like little things you change to actually empower yourself. And
it's an idea you sort of like, people talk about manifestation as like a positive thing where, you speak positive to yourself, you start behaving in that certain way. It also applies in the opposite. Like a lot of I used to be the exact same. I'd always like swear at myself. You're a stupid fuck. You're a fat fucking idiot. Da, 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 da. You actually, believe it or not, genuinely. So here's an interesting story, Sabrina. Over starting my business, I'd never been more sedentary than I've ever been, like sitting at my desk at my office, just working all the time. I wasn't as active as I used to be. I think I put on about 12 to 15 kilos since starting the business, right? And I remember every day I'd be like, oh, you're a fat fuck, you're this, you're that, you're always sitting, da, da, da. And I would still exercise, but I guess career of food, sitting in an office, Max was going to gain weight, right? for years, for these 3 years, I'm thinking, why can't I just drop the weight? Sorry about the car, guys, if you're listening. Why can't I drop this weight? Why? Oh, it's because you're this. It's because you're this. It's because you're this. Genuinely, and this is going to sound so cliche, one day I said, you know what? What if the way that I'm speaking to myself is almost manifesting me to not only continue the same habits, but this is going to sound some weird voodoo shit, but I was convinced that I was speaking to my stomach. Like, I would talk to people about this theory that I had that I could eat an ice cube and I'd gain calories from the ice cube. Like, trust me, you ask if you want to learn how to gain weight, ask my body. Like, I talk about my metabolism like it was busted and all this stuff. And I said, no more. No more will I say this about myself. I am a healthy person that loses weight when I say I'm going to lose weight. Not that losing weight is the epitome of health. I just mean for my goals. When I do this, my body is fit. My body is strong. I'm young. I'm youthful. I'm full of energy. I swear to God, Sabrina, suddenly my actions started following. Suddenly, each time I wanted to start being negative towards myself, I'd change the language. It sounds so wishy-washy. I get it. I've lost like 6 kilos. Like, I don't know what else to say. Like,
it's like I gave the example the other day when you go for a run and you start feeling tired, your legs start to feel heavy. If you tell yourself, oh, I'm so tired, I can't go any longer, I just not gonna make it, you're gonna stop running. Like, you can try how much you want, you're just gonna stop running at some point, right? But if you tell yourself, I can do it, come on, just a little bit longer, I will feel so much better afterwards, I'll be proud of myself once I hit that 5K or whatever you're trying to do, you're gonna keep going. Like, there's no way you're just gonna stop running, right? And I feel like that is just like such a good example of the power of your thoughts as well.
100%. And running, and for those who don't run, I've picked it back up recently. There is a reason it is a worldwide sport and something that we've done since the beginning of time. Genuinely, running is the one thing that like really proves to your mind how powerful it is, because like your body is capable of so much more than you think. Like, I just finished 30 days of running 5 kilometers a day every day. On day 7, Sabrina, no lie, I thought my legs were broken. I thought to myself, because I made a bet with my friend, I said, whoever stops first on this 30-day challenge owes the other person $1,000. We shook hands on it.
Holy shit.
I thought to myself, holy crap, I've shaken hands with this person. It's day 7. I have shin splints. I was running like 8-minute pace. I was like walking. I was like almost crying. It was horrible. I thought, oh my God, how am I going to do this and not lose the money? Suddenly between day 8 and day 12, I just thought, well, I'm not stopping. That's the reality. I don't want to spend $1,000 on a running challenge. I'm not stopping, right? So we either figure this out or I stubbornly break my legs and this $1,000 bet is going to cost me my ability to walk, right? Anyway, either or, I said to myself, I will not complain anymore. Sounds so cliche and so easy to do. Trust me, every single run sucked, even the ones where I got better. But where I'm heading to with this is I'm not going to complain anymore. The reality is it's not going to serve me getting to my goal, which I will get to no matter what. I'm not letting this not happen. By day 15, Sabrina, my legs weren't hurting anymore. I didn't go to the physio. I didn't go see a doctor. I didn't go get a massage. Just between day 8 and day 15, suddenly my legs, which I thought were going to snap, they're fine. And it was just because, like you're saying, you just extend what your mind thinks it's capable of, and suddenly I was over the hump. Suddenly I was running. Suddenly I was running a minute average pace faster, to the point where on the 30th run, I ran my first sub 5 minute 5K. So I ran 5Ks in less than 25 minutes. Point of the matter, that's not really, whatever your goals are, it don't matter. I'm not saying that. It's more your mind is so powerful. And that was a long ranty story.
Yeah, well, it just reminds me of it doesn't matter what you do, what your goals are, you always get to a place of resistance, but just knowing that when it feels hard or when negative self-talk is coming up or when, challenges are coming up, you got to push through that, and that's how you grow. And that's how, you just got to do it.
Can I ask you, Sabrina?
Yeah.
Because for people like you and me who have spent millions of hours listening to podcasts of people we look up to who have learnt these same skills and reading books of people who have learnt these same skills, it's clear that there's a commonality of things that need to be required to achieve these certain things. Like, I even heard on episode 1 of this podcast, Nonna, my immigrant Nonna, talked about, hey, every time things are hard, that's probably a good thing. So you're growing. Like, this is a common human thing. Do you have any secret sauce or special advice or ideas for not the macro idea of, hey, hard things are good, but what you tell yourself or what you do for yourself when those things are hard. Like you were saying before, you were running and you said, you know what, you'll be so much prouder for yourself after, you'll be so much better for it, just keep going. Have you learned any strategies that you can use during those moments of discomfort to keep you going?
It's definitely the emotional intelligence behind it. And, just like your grandma said, like when there's resistance, it's a good thing because that's how you grow. And whenever you have setbacks or failures, you learn from them. So it's actually a good thing to fail and to make mistakes because you're learning from it, and that's again how you grow. And I mentioned that in my course as well. So I actually say make them all. So ALL. Accept it, learn from it, and let it go.
Nice. That's good.
I was like so
ALL.
proud I came up with that. But it's just exactly that, because we are trained to think or believe that mistakes are a bad thing. Like in school, you made a mistake, you got a bad grade, and it's just like bad.
And the grade is always final, mind you. Like you get let's say you get a C, right? Here's your C. Good chat. See you on the next subject. It's not like here's your C and here's all the ways you could have improved from it and gotten better. It's just like C.
Exactly. And now, you can actually see that mistakes are a good thing because you are learning from it. Like, learn from it. Let it go. Don't be too involved in it. Don't spend too much anger on it. You just kind of accept it. You're learning from it. Okay, what can I do better next time? And then you just let it go.
I like that. To the closing end of this podcast, Sabrina, considering everything we've talked about in general, this is a question I like to ask most of my guests is, let's go North Star or whatever it's called, Northern Star, the star people look at to guide them. There's a saying for it, I forget. Your reason why, Sabrina? Why do you do what you do? Why do you push yourself? Why do you bother to continue seeking discomfort when you seem to have things relatively figured out for your stage in life?
Because I want a better life for myself. Nothing against my parents. I love them. They're great people, but I just don't want to end up like them. So I just want to create a better life for myself. And I know that I have to work. Like, I'm willing to put in the work, and I want to put in the work as well. And now, like, moving into coaching is just about helping other people as well. Like, because I've been there, I know how it feels like, but I also know that you don't have to live that way, and you can change.
I like that.
If you're willing to put in the work.
You can change if you're willing to put in the work. I was going to ask you another question, but that might be like the slam dunk line to end the podcast. Guys, if you like this episode, make sure to subscribe to the Mouthful with Marcus. Check out Sabrina's pages. They'll be linked in the description. Is there anything you want to share or part the audience with? Or was that the slam dunk there? That's it there.
That's it.
Guys, make sure to subscribe. Thank you for watching. My hosting skills need some work.